Hello and welcome. Keep your hand in your skirt. My name is Sabrina Brightstar. I am your host. Keep your hand in your skirt. What does that mean? That means we are women who take responsibility for ourselves. We mind our own business. We tend to our set point, our vibration, and we take responsibility for what we are creating in our reality. So, it's been a while, right? It's been a long while. Why has it been such a long while? That's what today's topic is. Today's topic is a deep dive into the body. I'm going to tell you some of my body experiences and why I have not made a podcast for so long, and also talk a little bit about how the bodies communicate with us, how we can perhaps have a better connection to the body, or how to have more kindness or compassion if your body is doing something that is a little challenging to go through. Before I even talk about what I want to tell you about what's happened to me, I want to share this with you. It's just popping into my mind as I'm talking right now. I recently read a channeled message from the Pleiadians, from Christine Day, and they said, which gave me total goosebumps, which for me is a truth. Me and my body totally believe this 100%. But they said self-compassion is the purest form, the highest form of love you can have. And that rings so true to me. Self-compassion, right? Because most of us, we're really hard on ourselves, and most of us are judgmental, right? We're rough on ourselves, we're self-judgmental, and we're rough on our bodies. We're if your body is doing something that you don't want it to do, we're often really negative, and we can often, without even realizing it, just talk so mean and cruel and abusive to our own bodies. So let me tell you what's happened with my body. First of all, before I tell you what happened, I want to tell you a little bit about my belief system. I'm a big believer in Eastern medicine, in Eastern modalities. The difference between, for me, what I've noticed, the difference between Eastern modality and Western modality, in the West, in America, if you have a headache, they will treat the symptom of the headache. You'll get ibuprofen, Tylenol, something that will mask the pain of the headache to alleviate the side effect of the headache. In Eastern medicine, if you have a headache, the question is what caused the headache. Eastern medicine wants to get to the cause of the side effect, not treat the side effect. That's what I've found the difference is. So for me, I'm a big believer in Eastern medicine. Western medicine, not so much. In fact, I had not been to a doctor in over 20 years. It's the truth. And it's something that, that I keep private because it's controversial, and many people, many people have a point of view about it, and that's okay. You can have a point of view, and I have a point of view, and everything's just fine. So anyway, what had happened is, first of all, I had noticed over the years, I've noticed certain things that are uncomfortable for my body, but because I'm resilient, I just adapted. Right? So I used to be a long distance runner. I used to love tennis. Well, I found that when I would do those things, I would be in a lot of pain. So I morphed. I biked. I really, really got into biking, swimming. There's just certain things that me and my body can do that there's not heavy side effects. There's not pain that happens afterwards. So I've just adapted, no big deal. Haven't turned it into an issue, haven't turned it into anything significant. So I was in Florida, as you know, in January and February of 2022, and I just kind of have this vision. Well, if you get to live in Florida, and I stayed right at the beach. So if you get to live in Florida and you get to be right at the beach, then wouldn't I be a person who jogs on the beach every day? So I have this vision of myself jogging at the beach. So I would go and I would jog on the beach, and it was very, very painful. And I had stopped running, jogging years ago. But I wanted to do it, right? I have this vision, and I'm mind over matter. I'm going to force this to happen. So I went several days jogging on the beach, and I created so much inflammation in my knees. My knees were so swollen, I could hardly walk. right? And I was just really frustrated. And I've had this happen to me before. I've had my knees inflamed before. I've had this pain before. And for some reason, I guess I was just at that place. I don't know if it got so bad from forcing myself to be a person who jogs at the beach. I don't know what happened, but I was finally like tired of it. So when I came back to Minnesota, I was at the chiropractor, and my chiropractor said, I think you might have a torn meniscula. And I'm like, what is that? How do we treat it? Like, I don't want to be in this pain anymore. And he says, if this is what you have, it's a surgical procedure. So I end up having to go and get x-rays, and the x-rays, they actually want an MRI. So I have an MRI, I meet with the doctor, he's got my two knees up, right? We've got the x-ray, and this new doctor I've never seen before, he says, how much medicine do you take every day? How many ibuprofen or Tylenol are you on every day? And I'm like, I'm not. And he's like, you're not on any pain medicine? And I'm like, no. And he's like, how are you functioning? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, your x-rays show you have zero cartilage, you are bone on bone, and like, he was just shocked that I'm not addicted, and he was shocked that I had not been in, right, to a doctor to get this help, to get help. And he's like, and I said, well, is it a torn meniscula? Like, I still don't understand, right? I'm like, can you do a surgical procedure? And he goes, well, a torn meniscula would be like if your car is in a total wreck, but then you wanted to go in and like do an oil change. Like, you need a whole new car. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, you need total knee replacement. You need a total double knee replacement. Like, you need, there's nothing for you to do. There's nothing to work with. You need a total double knee replacement. So I'm like, okay. And then he's shocked that like, I'm not crying, or he's like, I've never had to deliver this type of news the first time I've met somebody, right? Like, and I'm like, okay. And so he's like, you can go home and think about what you want to do, but like, we can't help you. Like, your only option is a total knee replacement. You're bone on bone. Like, you have a terrible, terrible, terrible case. So I'm like, okay. So I decide, right, as a person who doesn't want to do Western medicine, right, as a person who like wants, to think in the power of, spirituality, the power of I'm a creator manifest of my own life, like, how am I going to wrap my mind around needing or receiving two man-made objects in my knees? Like, so I knew, like, right, so I knew I had some work to do. So I talked to some different people. I don't want to get a lot of information because everybody wants to project a terrible story to you, and I didn't want the stories. I didn't want people projecting in my reality. But I intuitively knew that if I was going to put man-made objects in my body, I had to not only surrender to it, but I had to welcome it. I had to like talk to my body, talk to my cells, talk to the molecules and say, hey guys, guess what? The knees need help. The body wants help, so the body's not in pain. We've have the opportunity to have these surgeries to get man-made objects into our body, but they're here for us. They're here to help us. They're here, right? So I acclimated to that. I got prepared for that. I scheduled the surgery, one in September, the other one 6 weeks later in October. And I prepared as well as a person can prepare, because my preparation was mostly emotional. I didn't want to know about the physical things because I don't know. I just didn't want to know about physical therapy. I didn't want to know about recovery. I just wanted to like be emotionally prepared. So I am a private person. I kept it personal. I'd only told people in my really close circle. I didn't even tell my daughter. I mean, I had told my daughter I was going to have the surgery, but I didn't even tell her the day it was going to happen. And The day before the surgery, so 2 days before the surgery, I get into one of the worst fights of my life with my lover. And I feel so abandoned. I feel so neglected, rejected, like all of my trauma, like all of my daddy issues, all of the shit happens 2 days before I'm about to get anesthesia and I'm about to have this major surgery. And I am feeling so emotional, so isolated, so alone, so rejected, right? So trying to process that. I go in for the surgery, nothing at the hospital. It was a day surgery, but it wasn't working. They couldn't find this. They bruised both my arms. I was covered in bruises. Like it was a very unpleasant experience at the hospital. But I was worried. I was worried about being under the anesthesia because I'm like so sensitive and right. And I have been super emotional. So I was really afraid I would have a scary experience being under anesthesia. But luckily, I woke up from the anesthesia and I had been taken into a field of flowers. Which, if you know anything about me, I love flowers. And it wasn't just a normal field of flowers. They were like these high, tall, like higher than human flowers. So all the flowers were way above me. They were sunflowers. And I just lived. I was in this community where I was just my soul, my spirit, my essence. I just lived in this flower kingdom. And it was peaceful and it was supporting and it was just really amazing. So that part is a really good part of the story. And then my son was at the hospital by himself. He handled everything about himself, which it didn't occur to me that maybe he needed support. It hadn't occurred to me at that moment, at that time wow, emotionally, this could be rough on him. I was just so into myself, right? I didn't even look out for him and his needs. But my son was amazing. We got home and then it turns out that I can't sleep. And the pain, the blocker that they gave me for the pain didn't take. So I am in excruciating pain on a scale of 1 to 10. My pain is a 20. Right? I am overtaking the drugs. I am doing whatever I can. I am in so much pain, but we had discovered that if you stand, so even though I just had knee replacement and I'm back home, I discovered if you stand, the pain lessens. So I could only lay for 20 minutes. So every 20 minutes I would stand to try to cope with the pain, but I was so exhausted. I was so tired. I hadn't slept. I'd had this huge fight, emotional wreck. Right? So I would literally be standing in the middle of the night to try to alleviate the pain. I would be falling asleep standing, which you don't want to fall asleep standing when you've just had knee replacement. That's not safe. But it was a mess. If you can imagine a mess, I had created a effing mess for myself. So the days were rough. I cried all the time. I was just crying. The more I cried, the worse I felt. I felt alone. I felt isolated. I felt just so vulnerable. And then to walk around with a walker, wow, it's okay to have a walker, but when you feel like you're a young person, when you feel like you're a youthful person, and you don't have the ability to do things for yourself and you need a walker, wow, that busted me open. That my compassion and awareness for how people feel when they are so dependent on others. And so when your body no longer can do the normal things hold open a door, people would have to hold open a door for me so I could go through with my walker. And it would take me so long because, because I'm not moving fast. And people were so nice, strangers at stores, they were so kind to me. People were so kind. But I I'm wow, this really messes, aging and having your body do things to you. Wow, that messes that. I didn't know. You don't know until you know. You don't know until you know. And so anyway, I was crying every day. I did have, some of my friends were supportive and calling, and that was beautiful. That was really helpful. But in pretty much like I was isolated, right? And just crying every day. And I knew, luckily, I had had a really good nurse or nurse practitioner after I had given birth to my son 20 years ago. I used to cry every day because of the pregnancy, as well as my son's father and I were having struggles. And it was a really unhealthy situation for me. He was, you right, having an affair, and I was crying, and I was, it was a mess. So I was crying every day, and my sister had said, "You cry every day. That's not normal." And I'm like, "I cry every day." And she's like, "You cry every day." So she's like, "You need to go tell somebody that you cry every day." So I had gone to the nurse practitioner at the clinic, and I said, "I cry every day." And my sister said, "That's not normal." And luckily, the nurse practitioner said, "If you have extreme stress or prolonged stress for over 7 days," so if anything, so this is a message for anyone who has extreme stress, prolonged stress for over 7 consecutive days, something changes in your brain. So even though I'm a positive person, even though I do all these practices to take care of my mental health, even though, right, like I'm aware of my mental health, I really tend to my mental health. Doesn't matter if you have prolonged stress for over 7 days, the chemicals in your brain change. And in order to reset them, like positive thinking, getting massages, that's not going to reset them. She explained to me. So she put me on antidepressant medicine. And it helped. I finally stopped crying. And I was able to reprogram my brain. And after, I think I stayed on them 3 to 6 months or something, and then I went off of them. So fast forward to 20 years later, and I'm crying every day from this surgery, from this breakup, from this, all of these painful memories of my past, right? Like all of this, like feeling so abandoned and isolated, and right, and so I know it's not normal that I'm crying every day. So I kind of think to myself, like, well, I'll wait for 2 weeks. If I'm still crying at the 2 week mark, I'll go in. So I probably waited closer to the 3 week mark, which, like, my advice, go in, get help, get help, get help. But you know how we think, like, oh, I'll snap out of it. I'll start to feel better as I get my strength back, whatever. But anyway, I go in finally. Every time I talk to anybody, I'm always crying. So she puts me, she says the same thing. Yes, just too long of stress, too much, pain, blah, blah, blah. You need to be on antidepressant medicines, which again, I have no judgment about it. I'm like, I was on this kind before. Can you put me on this again? So she did. And I'm like, I don't sleep. So she tried to help me with some sleeping things. So now I've still got the other knee, right? Like I know I have the other knee to go through, and I'm like, oh, and I'm thinking like, I'm not doing it. Like there's no way in hell I can go through this kind of emotional and physical abuse again, right? Like it was so effing painful. But at the same time, right, so I go in for the checkup. I try to talk to the doctor. I'm like, what happens if I don't do the other knee? And they're like, you never have to do the knee. Surgery is a choice. But like, it's never going to improve, right? Like, there's no cartilage, but you don't have to do it. But just know it's never going to improve. It can stay exactly the way it is right now, or it will get worse. Those are the two things that will happen. So I'm just like, right? Like, all right, so I know like I really, really wanted it done, but like I was just really dreading it. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to do the work. I'm going to prepare myself. I'm going to have like, try to have a better experience. I'm going to like, do what I can. I tried to be positive. I'm on the antidepressant, right? Like, so anyway, I go in for the surgery, and then it turns out that the day of the surgery was way better. I was able to articulate for myself better with the nurses. Everything just went way better. Again, my son is there by himself, no one to support him. I'm not aware that this is probably totally exhausting for a 20-year-old kid to feel responsible to handle all of this, right? Like no clue, no awareness of him. I go in, have the surgery. whatever come out. And this time the pain is worse as far as the after pain, right? So on the because before, the outside of my knee is what, like, all of the nerve endings on the outside was still is tender, but this time the pain on the inside, right? I felt like somebody had cut my quadricep. Like, it was like, right? Like, it was painful. But luckily I slept more. So this time, like, I was able to sleep. I'd figured out, to sleep. My body accepted the sleep this time. So that was better. But I again, right? Like, I'm emotional, blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to, like, reach out a little bit, trying to, like, when you're a person who doesn't want to, like, ask for help. So I'm kind of trying to ask for help, but I'm kind of like, not really, blah, blah, blah. Well, then I had started talking to my partner again. He came over to my house unexpectedly. I didn't know he was coming. My son, who's, like, been witnessing me crying all the time because of him, my son who's, like, seen some unhealthy things happen as a result of him, right? So he comes over unexpectedly. My son is there. My son is feeling really protective. And, the guy, like, upsets me again. So I start crying again. So I'm on the couch crying. He's going to leave. And then my son tells him, like, don't ever come back here. Like, please let this be the last time you see my mom. Like, don't do this to us anymore. So then he gets all triggered. He's all upset. I'm like, just please leave, please leave. Now's not the time. I just had surgery. Now's not the time to get into this. He's totally triggered. He, like, actually comes as if he's going to charge my son, right? Like, he comes towards us, and it scared me. It scared my son. And, like, it was terrible. It was like the worst fucking 10 minutes of my life. Well, pretty close, right? So he leaves. My son and I are, like, in shock. Can't believe this is happening. And everything comes to the head. Everything, right? So my son just ends up breaking down and telling me, like, things that he'd been feeling and suppressing for so long, right? Like, things that had happened when he was younger, things that I unintentionally said and did that really, really hurt him, that I had no idea, that he's just been holding into him, like, telling me, like, how he feel, it was intense. And it hurt so much to know that in my carelessness, I caused my son so much pain. Like, that, like, will stay with me forever. But it was good. It was good that he, like, he shared it, right? He's 20 years old. He shared it. And so, like, it was beautiful. So even though it was hard to hear, even though, like, I feel guilty, like, it was so good, so beautiful that he could tell me. And I've, like, talked to people about it, and they said the fact that my son felt safe enough to be able to tell me his hurt, to be able to tell me how I have caused him pain, like, that's good. That's good he felt safe enough. That's good that he's advocating for himself. That's good he's speaking his truth. And that, that's part of the family pain, right? Like, I have hurt feelings in my family, and I don't speak my truth. I don't tell, like, the men in my life how much they've hurt me, how rejected I feel, how abandoned I feel, right? Like these ancestral repetitive patterns that we do. Like, I want to break out of them. So to get to watch my son, like, create a new pattern, like, so beautiful, and I'm so proud of him. And so even though, right, so I'm highly emotional, and even though it's been absolutely the worst time of my life, like, so many great things are coming out of it. Like, so many good new seeds got planted, so many new awarenesses, thoughts have come up, information, like, and because I really do believe life is for me. Life is happening for me. So even though like I went into the darkest of dark times, it's okay. It's okay to have really dark times. And what's nice, luckily, I had this really dark time at a place where I'm emotionally, mentally strong enough to be okay with it being terrible, right? Because even though it's been terrible, I've known it's for me. It really is for me. And I've been, to see the doctor, and the part that I haven't shared with you, I never did any of the exercises that I'm supposed to do. I didn't do the physical therapy, right? I don't like to be told what to do. I'm not following rules. That's not going to ever happen. But nobody could believe like how easily I was moving and how quickly I was walking and how easily I stopped using the walker, and then you're supposed to go to a cane, and I was just like walking. I was just doing things. I was driving a car. And like the physical therapist, like everybody's been really shocked at how I'm adapting. So I was seeing the doctor for the first time since the original first time, because I'd just seen like his assistants and different people. And he's just like, wow, like this is amazing. And so I'm telling him that I always knew that if I was going to, and I told him my story, that I'm not really a believer in Western medicine, and that I knew if I was going to do this, I would have to welcome these man-made materials into my body. And so I did. And I told him I always knew they had names. I couldn't figure out what the names were going to be. Was it Laverne and Shirley? Was it Thelma and Louise? Like I was always, and I could never like come up with their names. Well, after I had the second one, I realized the names of my two knees are Samson and Delilah. So I'm telling my doctor about Samson and Delilah, and he's trying to project a storyline from the Bible about how Delilah was kind of whatever, sneaky. And I'm like, hey, stop. Like you're projecting a biblical storyline in my reality. And in my reality, Samson means strength. Delilah means delicate. Like they literally told me their names. They are in my body. They have been welcomed in my body. They are here for me. They're helping me. Me and my body have accepted them. We thank them. And then he just like looked at me and he's like, you are a sage. He's like, you are ahead of your time and you are a sage. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, I'm going to tell you something that I don't, now that you've had the surgery, I can tell you this, but what we're discovering, many people are having this surgery, and even though like it should be way better for them because, right, there's not bone on bone anymore, there's cartilage now in these fake knees and these man-made knees, he's like, there's a percentage of people that are not getting better. And in fact, they regret that they had the surgery. And science can't understand why they're regretting it and why they're not getting better. And what they've come to discover is there is a huge mental piece that has not been addressed with Western science, with Western medicine. And he's like, they are like, the body thinks that there's a foreigner or an enemy in the body. So the body's always trying to reject it. And he's telling me, like, in the future, because what science is discovering is mentally you have to not only accept, welcome, and thank these man-made materials into your body, then you can acclimate. So, like, he thinks, and my physical therapists think, like, that I am, like, an amazing recovery because I did the mental work, right? So even though I'm not doing the physical work, I don't do the physical therapy, right? Blah, 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 I'm not going to do it. But mentally, I knew that I needed to appreciate them, welcome them, accept them, thank them, and do what we can to acclimate to them so it can be as easy as possible for my body system. Here's the other interesting thing. You guys know Louise Hay? And Louise Hay has written books about the body, and she talks about the different parts of your body can be symbolism for different things that can be happening in your reality. So I looked up knees. Knees are symbolism for do you feel supported? So isn't it fascinating? I literally go have my knees busted open, literally ripped out of my body. Literally, my knees are taken out of my body. And I have simultaneously, I manifest, I create an experience where I feel so isolated and alone. Isn't that amazing? But new knees got implanted, right? So I've got new knees, I've got new support, I've got new patterns on how I'm thinking about people, on how I'm asking for help, how I am learning that I can't have this victim mindset where I don't communicate and ask for what I need. It goes back to that victim mindset. It goes back to that, like, I don't want to be a burden to anyone, right? Like, my mom was a master at teaching me, don't take care of yourself. Don't let people know what you need, right? So even though I thought on one level I had really changed, and I have changed compared to how deeply rooted that concept was, put yourself last, take care of yourself last. Isn't it fascinating? My last podcast was about who or what do you make significant at the cost of you? And then here I go and have this masterpiece of a creation where I really get to learn that I need to speak up for myself, ask for help, receive help, right? I need to gift myself that self-protection. I need to gift myself, right? Like, I need to be my own self-advocate. The best thing you can do for yourself, self-compassion. It really, like, the purest form of love, the highest form of love is self-compassion. What do you need? How are you going to take care of you? Where are you dismissing you? Where are you ignoring you? Where are you not validating you and your needs? Isn't it so fascinating? So I have been on a roller coaster ride, but I'm like really, really happy. I'm happy. I'm happy that everything got busted open. Things are going really well with my son. He's like getting, he talks to somebody. Our relationship is really, really good. Like, there's a new pattern, right? There's a new way we're communicating with each other that is really honoring him and honoring me. And it's okay that as a parent I fucked up, right? It's okay. Like, that's self-compassion. Like, I've made mistakes. I've messed up. I've said and did things that were terrible and hurtful unintentionally. I didn't realize how much pain I had caused him, which is just like this whole circle. Like, because you know what I mean? Like, my dad caused me so much pain. I have so much hurt that my dad has caused me pain. Was it his intention? No. Does my dad totally love me? Yes. Then I'm partnered with his man, right? He caused me so much fucking pain. Is it his intention? Does he not love me? No and no, right? So it's just a full circle moment to see how we can really, really hurt people unintentionally. And that's why we got to get better at speak up for ourselves, let people know, tell people the depth of what's going on, self-protect, and then have the conversations, have the tough conversations, so you can heal the wounds, so you can rearrange the patterns, so you can rearrange what's going to happen in the future, and you're not functioning from these same dysfunctional dynamics, right? My father, my partner, me and my son, it was all the same goddamn pattern of hurting unintentionally, right? So to take responsibility and to make changes and to create new patterns, the body will reveal fabulous information to you. So thank you so much for listening. That was very vulnerable. I'm going to keep it up, even though it's super, super vulnerable. I think it's important. I think it's important to be real, to let people see you. So I shared pieces of myself with you today. So I hope you're having a great day. Keep your hand in your skirt, manage your own set point, and I can't wait to continue to visit with you.